Hi everybody, welcome to a new series called McCartney Through The Decades. Over the next few weeks, amongst my other videos, I'm going to take a look back through Paul's incredible career and pick out what I believe are the best songs from each period. I've also put together a Spotify playlist, so if you want to play these songs along at home, you can do. And if you want to see the future episodes, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell and you won't miss an episode. Right, episode 1, we're looking at the 21st century. So because we're into the 21st year of the 21st century, I thought I'd start off by doing the top 21 songs that we've had since the year 2000. First of all, I'm just going to show you here, these are the songs that I whittled down. These are not going to feature in the top 21, but they were part of the shortlist, and they're still all absolute corkers. Paul's made some fantastic music this decade. But let's crack on now with number 21. So I've gone with Your Loving Flame from Driving Rain. Now, I think this was a good Paul ballad. Forget the subject matter, we're not going to worry about that here. But it was a really nice song, and I think it only improved on the subsequent tour when he did the live version that featured on Back in the World and Back in the US. It came across as a really great Paul McCartney ballad, and that's my number 21. At number 20, it's another ballad, it's My Valentine from Kisses on the Bottom. So this was his great love song to Nancy, and it was sort of the great original from that album, an album that was full of old-time classics, but this sat beautifully amongst that. It's a really nice song. That's My Valentine at number 20. At number 19, it's Appreciate from the new album. Now, when I first heard this, and ever since really, I've thought, you know, that's far more inventive and creative than we've got any right to expect really from a man who's in his 70s, as he was when that album was made. Certainly compared to a lot of his contemporaries who don't sort of seem to have that creative spark anymore, Paul still has, and I think it shines through on Appreciate, just that he's trying to make something that captures the imagination. It could have easily been something on, say, Electric Arguments, the Fireman album, because he was certainly in that frame of mind. At number 18, it's another song from New, it's Early Days. I love the production of this song, I love the sentiment of it. It's basically Paul saying to all those people who've been writing about him as experts for the years, you know, you weren't there, I was. Don't think that you know the whole story, because you don't. And the production as well, the way that it sort of builds, the way when some of the acoustic guitars comes in and the soundstage that he's got on it, it's a really nice sounding song as well. And yeah, beautiful song by Paul, Early Days. At number 17, we're going to Chaos and Creation in the Backyard now, and Paul's song Jenny Wren. So yes, it's very much a follow-up to Blackbird. I don't think Paul would deny that. But it's a really nice song that shows that he can still do that kind of thing. It had a really interesting break in the middle with an instrument that I think was called a duduk, that Paul referred to in interviews quite often, and yeah, just a lovely McCartney acoustic guitar ballad, well worth your time and attention. At number 16, it's the first proper song from Egypt Station. It's actually track 2 on the album after the intro. It's I Don't Know, and I think it's a really brave song to kick an album off with. You know, you might have expected Come On To Me to be the opening song, that's sort of like the classic McCartney pop song, but this is much more of a downbeat ballad. You know, I've got crows at my window, dogs at my door, I don't think I can take any more. It's very much McCartney sort of laying himself bare, and a very brave choice for an opening proper song on an album. And it's a beautiful song. That the opening chords are very much the piano chords are very much Golden Earth Girl from Off the Ground, very similar to that, but probably a better song overall. Really nice. At number 15, I think it's one of the most interesting songs of Paul's career lyrically. It's Riding to Vanity Fair from Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. So I'd love to know exactly who this song is about. I have my theories, but I've no idea whether they're right or not. Part of me thinks that the obvious is that it's about Heather Mills. The other part of me thinks that it's about his publicist Jeff Baker, because it's around about the time when they had their falling out. And if you listen to it as a conversation between them two, and with Paul playing both sides of the conversation, it could very much sound like Paul sort of saying, you know, you got a bit too big for your boots, and you were thinking it was all about you. And I think there's some merit in it. It may well be about both of them. Really don't know. I don't think Paul's ever going to say. It's probably not a song that he ever thinks about anymore. So whether we'll ever know, I don't know. But I do think from the subject point of view of who is that song about, that makes it really interesting. And a great song as well. At number 14, it's a little bit of a cheat because it's actually 3 songs in one here, but it's from the back end of Egypt Station, and it's Hunt You Down, Naked, Ceiling. It's a wonderful 3-song closer to the album, and I think it's absolutely packed with clues about why Paul might have been thinking that this was his last album. And also the fact that Egypt Station, just from start to finish, is nods back to his previous career and other elements of his career. Even down to sort of the very end, the last vocal that you hear on this is Paul saying, "So long, so long, so long now." Is that him saying goodbye? I really hope not, but if it does turn out to be his last studio album, which I don't think it will, but if it does, it's a fantastic way to end it. 3 great songs. McCartney's done wonderful medleys throughout his career, and some not so wonderful ones. This is a great one. I absolutely love it. At number 13, it's the first song that we got to hear from Egypt Station, albeit it was a live version, Come On To Me. So on the 9th of June 2017, Paul was in Liverpool recording Carpool Karaoke, and the segment ended with him doing the gig in the pub where he premiered a new song, and it was this, Come On To Me. It's not big, it's not clever, it's just classic McCartney pop. It's one of those simple songs that shouldn't be catchy, but he manages a way to make it sound really so. Some of the lyrics might be a little bit cringy about a guy in his mid-70s sort of singing about, you know, if you come on to me, I'll come on to you. But let's not worry about that. It's a great pop song, classic McCartney tradition, and I love it. At number 12, if you're going to talk about simple McCartney songs that manage to be great, here's another, Dance Tonight, the opening song from Memory Almost Full. So Paul on mandolin, just a great thumping beat from Abe Laboriel all the way through, and it's just a fun song. Yeah, again, it's simple, there's not a lot to it. In the hands of somebody else it might sound really naff, but I think with Paul he manages to make it uber catchy and it sounds fantastic. I love the video as well that's got Mackenzie Crook as a postman delivering a mandolin to Paul's door, and the video is all about Paul opening the box, playing the song on the mandolin, and out of the box comes Ghosts, and it's just, yeah, really fun video to go with a very fun song. Brilliant. At number 11, it's another classic McCartney catchy pop song. It's Queenie I from the album New. So this is Paul singing about an old game that he used to play with his mates back in Liverpool when he was a kid. Queenie I, who's got the ball? I haven't got it, it isn't in my pocket. O-U-T spells out. And that bit was really interesting because if you think back to the Beatles' 1967 Christmas record, Christmas Time Is Here Again, you've got Ringo singing O-U-T spells out. So they were remembering it then, and then sort of 45, 46 years later, Paul's remembering it again in a classic pop song. Another great video as well worth checking out, where Paul's playing the song at piano in Abbey Road Studio 2, and just all sorts of famous people appear through the song, dancing to it. There's Johnny Depp, there's Meryl Streep, there's loads of people I've never heard of, but I realise that they're famous to other people. But it's a real good classic McCartney pop tune, Queenie I. At number 10, we're going back to the back end of Egypt Station album. It's Caesar Rock. So it's a great song that's got a few sort of different elements to it. It's got Paul in one of his sort of rockier singing styles. It's got great wordplay with Caesar Rock, she's a rock. It's got a fun ending with she's got matching teeth, and it's just got a really good beat throughout it. I absolutely love it. At number 9, I've talked about Paul McCartney interesting songs in the 21st century. This is right up there. This is Mr. Bellamy from Memory Almost Full. So again, I've got a theory. I'm full of theories, most of which are absolute nonsense, most likely. But to me, Mr. Bellamy has always been a cat stuck up in a tree. And it's to me, this is like Paul's version of Peter and the Wolf, Prokofiev. where, you know, in Peter and the Wolf, you've got the story, but as each character comes in, they've got their own theme tune, their own vibe. And I think it's the same with Mr. Bellamy. If it is a cat stuck up in a tree, and maybe it isn't, but if it is, then each time Mr. Bellamy is mentioned, there's a certain piece of music that comes with that. Then you've got the, you know, steady lads part, which to me is the fireman going up the ladder, trying to rescue him. And each time that comes in, again, it's got its own theme that accompanies it. So I think it was Paul trying to do something along those lines and telling a story in a song where each character has got their own theme tune, if you like. Really interesting song from a fantastic album. That's Mr. Bellamy. At number 8, it's a classic Paul McCartney rocker, which for the purposes of this video I'm going to assume that he wrote. I think he probably did, certainly the majority of it anyway. It's Cut Me Some Slack, which is the song that he did with the remaining members of Nirvana for Dave Grohl's Sound City Reel to Reel documentary from a few years back. So if you've not seen that documentary, it's fascinating. It's well worth watching. It's all about the mixing desk from the Sound City studios, which has made so many classic albums over the last sort of 45-ish years. And the studio was closing down. Dave Grohl got the mixing desk, put it in his own studio at home and made an album with it with some of his friends. And the last sort of 10 minutes or so of the documentary is them making this particular song with Paul. So it's Paul with Dave Grohl, Chris Novoselic and Pat Smear, who was sort of one of the early Nirvana members. Brilliant rocker. You've got Paul on that, I don't know what you call the guitar, but it's just like this box that's got one string on it, and you sort of play it with a slide. Very, very unusual guitar. If you have not seen Sound City Reel to Reel, I would recommend going and watching it. It's a wonderful documentary. You can hear the song anywhere on the Spotify playlist that I mentioned if you want to go and check that out if you're not familiar with it. But it's a wonderful Paul McCartney rocker. At number 7, we're back to classic Paul McCartney pop. It's the opening song from Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. It's Fine Line, and it was the lead single from that album. So it's just a great, up-tempo, happy Paul McCartney piano-based song. Just really fun throughout. It's got some great chord changes throughout it, and it really sort of kicks the album off what's not an up-tempo album by any means. And Fine Line is, I think, definitely probably the most upbeat song on that album, so it gets it off to a really good start. Yeah, classic Paul McCartney pop. Number 6, we're back to Egypt Station, and it's a song called Hand in Hand. It's a gorgeous ballad. It features an instrumental section throughout that sounds a bit like Jenny Wren that we talked about a few minutes ago, where that used a duduk. I don't know whether Hand in Hand does, but it's something very similar anyway. And it's got a beautiful vibe to it. It's a lovely Paul McCartney melody, and yeah, it's just a beautiful song. Check it out if you're not familiar with it. Okay, we're into the top 5 of Paul McCartney songs in the 21st century. It's another Egypt Station song. It's Dominoes, and yeah, it's another great Paul McCartney song, which the main thing that I love about this song is that it just sort of seems to keeps going. Whenever it gets to the end of a chorus, it's just bang straight back in, keeping the rhythm. It doesn't let you go from its grip at any point during the song. It just keeps on ploughing through. It's got a lovely, well, I wouldn't say it's got a lovely melody, but it's just great the way that the melody of the vocal just reacts really well with the chords that are behind it. It's certainly hit the nail on the head with that one, and one of the highlights of the sort of start of the second half of Egypt Station. At number 4, we're going back to Paul's last outing as the Fireman from the Electric Arguments album. It's Sing the Changes, a wonderful Paul McCartney pop song, which I wonder whether, I mean, it would have easily sat on a regular studio album of Paul's. I know he sort of likes to keep the Fireman project for things that are a bit different, but this is so good that, you know, it would have fitted on any Paul McCartney album throughout the eras. It's just such a happy tune. It's probably, I'm sure it's the only Fireman song that is used in concert, and he was certainly singing it in concert a lot around the time of that. It's on the Good Evening New York City live album, where it sounded great on that because it's just a wonderful pop song. Okay, we're into the top three now, and all three are from different places. And the first one, we're going back to Memory Almost Full, and this is the song House of Wax. So the first time I heard House of Wax, I absolutely hated it. I didn't get it at all. I thought, this is the most overblown, pompous nonsense I've ever heard in my life. Didn't like it. Second time I heard it, I thought exactly the same thing. Wasn't getting my head around it at all. Third time, I just started to get a little inkling of, okay, can I see what he's... I think I might see what he's trying to do here. Fourth time I heard it, absolutely loved it, and I've loved it ever since. It's what... I tell you what's surprising about House of Wax to me is that it's serious all the way through. And Paul McCartney's got a habit right throughout his career of usually when things get a bit heavy, he does something to lighten it. So, for example, the end of 1985 on Band on the Run, you know, that's a real heavy ending, and he loosens the tension by having the reprise of Band on the Run. And there's other songs where it's really serious, but then he lightens the tension. He never lightens the tension on this song. It's emotional all the way through. He's singing great, the production's great, well, as great as it can be on Memory Almost Full, which is one of the most awful production sounding albums I've ever heard in my life. But I would love to hear a cleaned up version of that, I really would. But House of Wax is a sensational, epic song from Paul, and yeah, fantastic. At number 2, not one of Paul's better known songs, but I think it's absolutely classic McCartney. It's from 2009 and it's called I Want to Come Home, and it was the title tune from a film called Everybody's Fine. And it's just another wonderful McCartney ballad. Tom Jones covered it. I've never heard the Tom Jones cover, I must admit, so I can't comment on that. But the Paul McCartney original version, it's just an absolutely gorgeous song. It's showcasing that he could still write a great melody, set it to a great backdrop, and write an emotional tune. Unfortunately, as at the moment, it's not on that Spotify playlist because it's not on Spotify. It's not the easiest song to get hold of. So I'd really love some sort of Paul McCartney's rarities package to come out at some point that collects things like this and things that have appeared in various places over the years and gathers them together. And that would be a surefire thing to be on there because it's an absolutely gorgeous song. Okay, here we are. This is my number 1 Paul McCartney song for the 21st century so far. It's Despite Repeated Warnings from Egypt Station. Absolute epic of a song. Very much in the vein of Band on the Run, which, you know, goes through the various phases. It's like 3 different songs in one. Despite Repeated Warnings is similar, where, you know, it starts off as quite a downbeat song, nice sort of, not a ballad as such, but that kind of vein. And it just builds up as it goes through the stages. It's a song about climate change where he's talking about, you know, the blinkered captain who can't see ahead of him, like the danger that he's lurking towards. And, you know, you can make your own mind up who he's singing about there. I'm sure people have got their own opinions on that. But it's a wonderful song. There's lovely little touches in it that, certainly one that only grabbed me after several listens, was where he sings about the best crew on the planet. And then it cuts to live Paul on the stage shouting, "Best crew on the planet!" and the crowd erupt. And he's clearly done that as a little nod and thank you to his stage crew who've built his shows for him over the past, 20 odd years probably, while he's been in this phase of his life career. So lovely little nod there. But this is epic. It builds up, it builds up. There's great horns that come in. I think it's the same horn band that was on Come On To Me earlier, the wonderful sounding brass that's on there. And it's just an epic, epic song. I absolutely love it. And I'm saying that's my number 1 for the 21st century. I hope you've enjoyed that. Coming next is the 1990s and the decades right back to the 60s. Please join me for those. I would love to see you. Let me know your comments on 21st Century Paul, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.